Alright, my name is Julia Vasquez, and today I will be presenting over the challenges that are facing the Colorado River. So first, I'm going to start with just a short introduction to the Colorado River. So it begins on the Continental Divide in Colorado's Rocky Mountain National Park, and it flows for 1,450 miles, stopping just a few miles short of the Gulf of Mexico. And it stretches across 7 different U.S. states. As you can see in the map, it flows through Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, and California. You can also see on that map that it outlines in blue the upper basin of the river, and in that tan color, the lower basin. And each of those red dots also represents the dams that are on the river. So why is the Colorado River important? More than 40 million people across those 7 different U.S. states rely on the Colorado River for water, recreation, and energy. So this means that the river is a critical source of drinking water for all those 40 million people. It is also used to generate hydropower through the use of all those dams that you saw on that map. And for recreation, it goes through 4 different national recreation areas and 11 different national parks. And the Colorado River is also used to irrigate 5.5 million acres of land, which includes 15% of all American agriculture and 90% of the nation's winter vegetables. So about 80% of all of that water from the Colorado River is being used for agricultural purposes. And then it is also important because it's a vital habitat for various fish and wildlife. The Colorado River is actually home to 30 different unique species of fish that cannot be found in any part of the world. So it is a very important habitat for those species. So now I'm going to cover the 2 main challenges that are facing the Colorado River. The first being climate change, and then I will talk about overuse. So climate change has some detrimental effects on the Colorado River. We are currently 22 years into the longest running drought in the history of the American West, and portions of the Colorado River have warmed more than double the global average, and the average flow has declined 20% since 2000. So we can see that climate change is having some really, really massive effects on the Colorado River. And if you take a look at this picture on the right, you can see even the difference between August of 2017 to August of 2022, how much of the water has been depleted and how the flow is continuing to decrease. Okay, so now I will cover overuse. So as water demand is increasing as the populations continue to grow, as I stated earlier, there are 40 million people that are relying on the Colorado River for water, and that population is only continuing to increase. And so all of those reservoirs that are storing that drinking water are being depleted, and water is being over-allocated, which means that more water is being promised to cities and irrigators than is available. And another factor contributing to overuse is the unsustainable consumption of this water. Like I said, a huge part of the water is being used for agricultural purposes. And a lot of those crops that are being grown are very water intensive, and the water is also going to factory farms that require massive amounts of water for their operations. So now I will discuss some of the environmental impacts of the depletion of the Colorado River. The first being ecosystem degradation. So as I talked about, the river provides many different habitats for lots of species that are only located there. And there is reduced water availability downstream as you go downstream throughout the river. So a lot of those agricultural farms downstream are not receiving the water that they need to produce their crops. And then salinization is also another big issue that is affecting the river. There are increased salt levels, which is negatively affecting the water quality and the soil health of the river. So now I will talk about the economic and social impacts of the Colorado River, the first being crop production. So obviously if the agricultural lands are not receiving the water that they need, they're not going to be able to produce those crops, which will negatively impact the economy and also will create a lot of negative social impacts when people aren't receiving this amounts of food that they need. It will also lead to water restrictions, and cities will have to start implementing shortages in order to maintain the little water that they do have. It will also reduce that electricity generation that I talked about through the use of hydropower from the water in the river. And it's also causing water rights disputes. Like I said, the water goes through 7 different US states, and they need to determine how that water will be distributed and used throughout those states and also in Mexico. So that leads me into the legal conflicts surrounding the Colorado River. So right now there is the 1922 Colorado River Compact, which divides the water among those states, but it is now considered to be outdated because it did not address climate change or how to respond to all of the new issues that have been arising in recent years. And another major legal conflict is that between US and Mexico. The Colorado River used to flow all the way into Mexico, but now stops a few miles short of the Gulf, and so there have been many new disputes over how that water is going to be distributed. So what's in the future of the Colorado River? As of right now, warming trends are projected to continue to grow to become even more extreme. Reduced snowpack in the Rockies will continue to decrease that river flow, and severe droughts are projected to become more common. So all of those negative impacts are going to continue to increase if things continue as they are now. So that's why we need to come up with some potential solutions to address all of these negative impacts that are occurring in the Colorado River. The first major one is sustainable agricultural practices. Like I said, 80% of that water is being used for agriculture. So we need to focus heavily on trying to develop new water-saving technologies to implement into those agricultural practices, and also consider making a change to less water-intensive crops in order to help save some of that water. And then the other major potential solution is updated policies. Like I said before, that policy that we already have is outdated and does not cover the issues that we're currently facing. So we need to focus on creating new policies that create guidelines for how to manage these shortages, that promote conservation efforts, and discuss how we can secure water rights in a way that is equitable for all of those different communities that are using this source. So in conclusion, the Colorado River is in a state of crisis due to climate change and overuse, and we must act now to protect the future of this resource and to protect all of the wildlife and the communities that are relying on the river for their survival.
Damn. Very good.